welcome back. We are on to our fourth demo of the day for ATD Demo Day, Augment L&D with AI. I'm very pleased to introduce today's fourth demo with ELB Learning, AI and Learning and Development Beyond the Button. Our presenter is Josh Penzel, VP of AI Innovations and Solutions with ELB Learning. And Josh is going to guide us through this demo, so I'm just going to pass it over to him.
Thanks a lot, Alexandria. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Just really quickly, I'm from the theater world. So, Alexandria, I'm going to ask you, can you reintroduce me? And this time, I'm going to go off, come back on, and I just want to see a ton of emoticons, if that's cool. So, those ones right down there under React. So if you can just hit a bunch of those reactions for me after Alexandria introduces me, I'll come back in, I'll feel great, and then I'll feel ready to, continue. It's my theater background. Okay. So Alexandria, I'm going to go off and then we'll do it again. All right. So off.
All right, and here is our presenter, Josh Penzel, VP of AI Innovations and
Wow.
Solutions with ELB Learning.
Thank you so much. It's so amazing to see so many emoticons and so much energy here. Thank you. Wow. It's what a shock. So I really appreciate it. Well, hi, everyone. Josh Penzel. Let me go ahead and get my sharing screen up here. All right. And I'm guessing you can see my screen. So welcome, the human side of AI. Before we get started talking about human, I'd like you to think, if your mood today were any hairstyle from history, what hairstyle would it be? Any hairstyle from history, what hairstyle would be? And while you're thinking about that, because I'm going to come back to it, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm Josh Penzel, VP of AI Strategy and Innovation. I've led L&D teams all over the place. If you haven't been able to tell yet, I am neurodiverse. I'm one of the 14 or 15% of qualified autistics who can actually keep a job, which just goes to tell you there's a lot of great talent out there. And if you couldn't tell, I do have a former career as a musical theater director. It's always weird seeing ourselves up on the screen like this. That's better. You don't have to be there. By the way, if you go to that QR code right over there, it's not my LinkedIn profile. It's actually my Josh P. GPT. It's a GPT I've trained on all of the webinars, all of the transcripts, everything I've done. So if you have questions during this, you can go there. If you have questions after, that's a great place to go. You'll get information, I know, emailed to you afterwards, but go talk with my presentation afterwards if you'd like. And by the way, I know there's going to be questions coming in, and I'm going to try to keep on touch of them, okay? So let's go back to hair. What kind of hair are we going to got? I got a shag, messy bun, mullet, 40s, Elvis, mohawk. Oh my gosh. Can anyone tell me why? Why that is hippie long hair today, or why you're feeling afro today, or why you're feeling starburst today. Sorry. 80s rock hair, why? I'm guessing that everyone has different reasons, right? So someone might say, oh, I have a French braid. Oh, high and tight's good. So high and tight, right? Maybe that's because, great, I'm working from home. It's a great day. Glad to be here, free and don't care. A French braid, right? That could be I like things organized, or it could be I'm trying to keep things together. And so what's super fascinating about this is actually I love this opening because it really reveals something about us as humans, right? And something about the way we communicate with one another. By the way, I think it might be interesting to do something here for a second. I'm not a big, I don't know a lot about hairstyles, actually, despite I asking this. And I think maybe by the end of this session, we could create, a whole e-learning on hairstyles. So I'm just going to ask it in ChatGPT. There's a deep research function. Put together a complete, training program with every piece of information I would need to learn about hairstyles of, all history. Perfect. And it's probably just going to ask me some clarification questions. I'm just going to say yes to all, very in depth. I want to be able to give this to my developer, and they have everything they need to create the training. Awesome. So we're going to let this run for a little bit. By the way, any of these platforms right now have these deep research things. We'll come back and see if we can, what we get. But let's go back to our presentation for now while we're learning all about hair, letting ChatGPT learn all about hairstyles. And I want to go back to this idea of language. All right. I want to go back to this idea of us sharing with each other these hairstyles and how that's so unique. If you've ever heard this, you've ever been in sales, you've probably heard that adage, never just means not now, right? I don't know how much of us believe it, but I want us to look at some of the words on this screen. And for instance, slam dunk. And what I would love, if you don't mind, in the chat, when you hear slam dunk or someone says slam dunk, what percentage do you think that thing will happen? So someone comes to you and goes, that sale is a slam dunk. I got 100%, 99.96, 100, okay, 95, good. What if I say that sale will never happen? What's the percentage? Zero, less than 100, 10, 2%, nil, zero, okay. What if I say it's a serious possibility? I think one thing we want to see here is that our definitions of these words are different, right? Now, when we do this, like in a study, and by the way, you can see the source down there from Annie Duke, there's an average we generally land on among all the humans who sort of fill this out. So, slam dunk, some people think there's actually a 10% variability there. But these are large language models. When we talk about generative AI, ChatGPT, they're called large language models. And so they work on language. So what's super interesting is what happens when we give them these words. Well, a few things. One is things like always and never, which we might treat as somewhat gray. They're going to look at perhaps in black and white terms, right? More than that, though, they might even disagree themselves about what these words mean. A serious possibility could be 50%, rarely could be 5 or 15. But the most fascinating thing about this study has nothing to do with the AI. It has to do with us. Among humans, generally, when we do this, we'll see that the min and max range is about 50%, meaning that someone thinks somewhere a slam dunk is 100 and someone thinks somewhere it is 50. And so, as Dawn, you just said, everyone interprets words differently. So let's think about that. If everyone interprets words differently, and if we are building a large language model, then how are we thinking in our organizations about rolling out something that's built on language, highly individual to me, maybe different from your language, and yet I have to roll it out? I believe we're thinking about this a little off, and that's what I'm trying to get to. I want to ask you another question. Would you trust a physician or an AI? So let's move from the language for just a second, and let's go to how we work with these things. Would you trust a physician or AI? It's a trick question, right? There's a study that was done. You could actually read about it in an op-ed in the New York Times. The study also down there below. What they found was physicians alone did not score that much differently than physicians using an LLM, meaning that your physician with ChatGPT performed basically the same as one with GPT, without and with. And by the way, you can look at how they did this. They're looking at diagnostic reasoning. They're looking at portfolios and trying to determine what the diagnosis is, et cetera. What's fascinating, though, is that the LLM, large language model, basic ChatGPT, not special trained, beats them both. Okay. Now, I know some people are asking, like, can I look at this? I want to understand all the cases. Go look at the study. You can get the in-depth there. But there's something interesting that starts to happen when we look at why this is occurring. Generally, two things are happening. One, I'm the physician, and when the chatbot points out something to me, I don't I don't believe it. I don't agree with it. It doesn't comport to my experience. And so I disregard it. The other thing that happens is people are using this like a search engine, right? I'm asking it a question, it's giving me an answer. What are the diagnosis points? And so there's two things that are really intriguing here. The first is I wonder if those doctors didn't think they were talking to a chatbot, but instead perceived that chatbot as, let's say, a junior resident or a med student who had just come out of class and had just read something. Might the surgeon or the physician or the doctor have said, "Why do you think that?" That's interesting. Why? As opposed to saying, "No, that's wrong." I think the point here is that we're treating AI differently, right? We're just treating it like a search engine. We're just treating it like things beforehand. We're not considering that this is no longer a tool. This is a teammate, right? It works on language, which is subjective. When I work with it in the right way, not just directing it, I can get more value from it. A tool like IT departments in the past was, how do I use it? But right now, you know how to use ChatGPT. It's your language. And it's everywhere. There's no pointing and clicking. In fact, I'm not the only one saying this. Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, who I'm sure you've heard, NVIDIA, the big AI group, in a lot of ways, the IT department of the future is going to be the HR department of agents, AI agents in the future. What I hear there is this is not about how to use things in the future. This is how we work with things. This is relationships. And yes, Mike Krushka's awesome. Love him. Just talked to him earlier. So I want you to rethink about AI with a human centric approach, meaning that this is not a tool that each one of these people is going to use. It is a team member and a team that you can build. Every individual can now build their own team. And that requires a mindset shift when we're thinking about organizationally changing this. We have to shift in our mindset from scarcity to abundance. What do I mean by that? Let's go look at what our research is going. By the way, still going, so we'll come back to it. And just so you can see, it's going through all these sources. It's going to give us all this information later. Could you have ever said, while I'm doing this, I'm going to go do research and take 15 sources? No. Could you have done that individually? No. Could you do that 10 times and we could go back and get it? No. These are all things you could not have done before. I could not have hired a research team before to do this for me. Now I can. I could never have had a translator at my beck and call. Now I do. So then the question becomes like, how do I do this, right? I know prompting, I know this, I know that. I just want to, sorry, and I just want to take a point. Notice that this is the AI augmented workplace in the future. And notice how complex it gets at the bottom. So two things. One is now at the bottom, everyone is not an individual contributor. They are a leader, which is going to get to how they build their teams. But the next thing is, how are you getting all that information and all that goodness from the people at the bottom up? Because generally, what do we do with people who do really good work? We reward them with more work. So if people are able to be more productive, more efficient, and do all these things on their own, which, by the way, if this is something built on language, they have to figure out how they do it, not how you want them to do it, right? So how are you going to get all that goodness and send it up? Because the goal now is not putting AI top down. It's bringing AI bottom up. Well, let me ask you this question. If we want to think about this and how we make this happen, why do we put new hires through onboarding? Why do we train new hires? I'm now not an individual contributor. I'm a team leader, right? I can hire as many people as I want. So why would I give them onboarding? To prepare them, to make sure they're doing things right. I'm guessing in the end, the reason we're actually giving them some form of onboarding is because I'm paying them and I need them to be productive or not lose money or not screw things up. And because I'm paying them on day one, I see value in not just letting them figure it out over months and months and months, right? Because I need to see a return on my investment, essentially. Are you paying anything to work with ChatGPT? Yeah, maybe you're paying $20 a month, but are you paying every time you open and talk to it? Are you paying every time you open up your phone and ask Siri something? Why are you treating the AI like a human in the sense that it has limits? You have as many new hires as you want. One thing Ethan Mollick, who if you're not following, has been saying, I suspect a lot of AI training in companies will become obsolete. Why? The prompting tricks that used to be useful are no longer good. The ability to execute code in many models has changed, and all these tricks, please, chain of prompt, no longer valuable. In fact, what he said in this study that they just released, prompting is just a coping mechanism while we wait for systems and structures. Okay, so what am I saying? Is prompting useful? It could be. Should we start with prompting? Absolutely not. What did I just say? We are hiring people at scale, and I don't have to worry about the onboarding because I'm not paying them, right? So why am I worried about doing the right prompt? Why am I worried about how to prompt correctly if already I know that I'm going to have to talk with it? I'm going to have to work with it. If this is a new hire and I hire someone, they're going to come in, they're going to do work for me. And then what's going to happen? I'm going to give them feedback and they're going to keep doing it over and over again. And we're going to work with each other. I don't just assume that I'm going to be able to communicate to it the exact perfect way, everything I need. And by the way, why? Why can't I do that with a new hire? Language. The way I say something or I say that's great is different from another boss. We all know this. One way we've seen in improving the way of letting these AIs work is almost to let them act like an actor, be their own person, make their own decisions. There's a study here where they looked at LLMs and pretending they're method actors. Essentially, instead of saying do things this way, they say, here's what you're trying to accomplish. Here are the obstacles. Go. You figure it out for me. Just like when we started our hairstyle look, which by the way is still going, I did not try to put together the best prompt ever because I know what it's going to give me. I'm going to have to give it feedback anyway. And we'll come back to this and hopefully it will finish. By the way, 15 minutes of research, pretty incredible. All right. So how are you actually going to roll this out? How are you actually going to take what I'm talking about and roll it out? Because what did I just say? Prompting is worthless. And most of us are teaching prompting, right? Yes. Tanasha, you're saying this perfect, except I want to say something really interesting. When the internet started, it took 15 years for the internet, 15, 20, 30 years for the internet to go from, right? From T1 lines and backbones to dial-up to PC Anywhere to the internet to phones to web crawler to email. It took like 15, 20 years. AI was here on day one. And here's the thing. Yes, I had to learn to talk to the computer in a very specific way. Boolean searches, for instance. But AI is like a human. In fact, if you ask it a question 3 times, it will give you 3 different answers. So I cannot treat it the same way I treated all these technologies in the past. In fact, the way I'm going to see success is by releasing and letting my learners and my people do the work they need. Here is my suggestion. And I'm going to talk about this from an individual perspective and then from a change management perspective at your organization. For an individual, the only thing that matters is getting them into the platform to stop playing. I'm sorry, to start playing. All they need to do is decide to use AI. And by the way, a great idea for you on that. Anytime someone says, I wonder if AI could, do you think you could? I wonder how I would. Does AI need to know X? That is your opportunity to be quiet, open up your phone or your computer, and just type into AI. Because what you're doing is not getting it to give you the right answer now. What you want is to get started. Remember when I said you could hire a new hire and do anything, you could hire them to do anything? Well, the cool thing now is not only that, but they do it instantly or they do it really fast, right? So no cost in time, no switching cost. Swim lanes, remember, you used to think swim lanes, I can't go back and forth between a swim lane. Well, you can go back and forth between this swim lane a million times in a few minutes and get the ideas. So the first thing you're going to do is simply decide to use the AI. While you start, then you start talking to it. And while you're talking to it, I'm just going to open up a new one. We are just going to coach it. So for instance, maybe I work in L&D. I don't even know what else to say, okay? I'm just going to see what it says. Well, I do a lot of e-learning. How can you help me? All I'm doing is trying to figure out what I need. If, by the way, digital photography. If this gives me nothing and nothing's good, I delete it. Who cares? It didn't cost me anything. And I want to point out with digital photography, the change was not the ability to take pictures. It was how we now capture memories. Because you can take pictures anytime, anywhere, and I bet you don't even delete them from your phone. So all I did was decide to use AI. And now I'm going to have a discussion. The way I have a discussion is I just look at stuff. And I go, I wonder if there's anything interesting here. Oh, it would be great. Can you help me make a SCORM compliant course? So I might say, you mentioned SCORM compliance. Can you create a SCORM course for me? I'm just asking, right? Let's go back to our hairstyle thing while that's going. So I think we're done. Oh, not yet. All right, we'll keep letting it go. We're going to have a really intriguing and in-depth hairstyles training. Okay, so now it can say, hey, I can do this, I can do that, right? What do you want? At some point here, you discover the use case that you need. You don't have to know the problem you're trying to solve at the beginning, because the fun thing is I can figure it out as I'm going. This is a metacognitive tool. And so I might say something like, I don't know, if you can create me a 5-minute SCORM demo on ladder safety, that would be cool. And let's just see what it can do. What's the worst that happens? Nothing. But what I'm guessing it's going to do is start to build stuff. And by the way, it might ask me questions. I'll say something like, I trust you. I don't care. Why am I doing that? I don't want to think. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I want it to go. So instead of me cognitively thinking about this, I can start reacting to it and say, no, that's not right. Yes, this is good. I don't know. Can you try that? All right. As you're doing that, you discover use cases. And that's when we begin to define the thing we're going to use the AI for. Now, I know, what do I mean by that? Well, let's say that we decide, wow, it's going to build me a SCORM zip file. By the way, try this out. It's going to build you a SCORM e-learning course. Might not be perfect. What if it breaks? I come back, I say it broke, didn't do it, try it again. Now, for the sake of time here, because we're running out of it, I'm going to assume that it gives me something perfect. If it didn't, I would coach it, I'd keep working with it. But let's just say it gave me the SCORM thing I wanted. I'm going to say something like, that's perfect. I want, right, you to be able to create 5-minute SCORM courses all the time. if I wanted you to do that like above, what prompt should I have given you in the beginning? Now, here we go. Okay. So we're doing all this, right? Recommended prompt, we're getting it. And now we have the stuff we need. Okay. So what do we need to do in order to actually adopt? Here are the 5 I's of adoption. And this is what we at ELB Learning use when we talk to our customers. What you'll notice is the first thing is an immersion step. So the very first thing we do is say, you need to get your people into this platform. You need to get them into something. You need to set boundaries. While that's happening, they can experiment, and you and your leadership begin to figure out what the heck is actually going on before you make large investments into training. Then I can iterate and instruct. I can internalize all this, and eventually I can get to innovating. Now, there are ways you can do this on your own. I'm just going to talk about this first step of immersion. Some thoughts for you. You can launch an AI in our industry challenge, create AI collaboration spaces, define those red lines and make sure people know when and when they cannot use it. And by the way, if that means personal, let them do it personally, because this is a skill. They need to start using the skill. And most importantly, you need your leadership to start using AI. Leadership is saying, oh, let's roll out training. That's not what we need. What we need is leadership to take the training first. We need leadership to understand the mindset of what's going on here. Now, we also at ELB Learning can implement this as well, right? And the way we do that is through workshops, through change management, through webinars. And if you're interested, you can talk to us about all of those things. We offer the full service. But what I wanted to make sure I shared with you is how you could get started right after this and get some insight into our methodology. I want to go back to our hairstyle thing, which is still running. So what I recommend you do is go away, start playing with this. Once you start playing with it, you'll get your ideas. You'll start to have questions. That's where you need to be right now. And then when you are there, that's the time to reach out to your colleagues, to vendors, to any of those folks, and start to understand how they think this is all going to turn out, because nobody knows for sure. Now, we at ELB Learning offer workshops called AI IQ. We offer adoption. We offer strategy. But all of that is incumbent upon us being able to talk to our organizations and understand the mindset shift here that's going on. And that begins with not knowing how we're going to use it. It begins not with formal training on prompting, which now we know is not valuable. It begins with understanding the mindset shift and starting to play and create the areas where your learners can then share back up. I know we're out of time and I have so much more I could share, but I wanted to also share a link again, a QR code again to my Josh P. GPT. And if you go in there as well, you can ask about all the ELB services that we offer. And again, before you make any major investments into this space, take a minute, think, reach out to folks like us, and let's just talk to understand where things are shifting. With that, I'm going to pause and say thank you so much. And I will, Alexandria, I think, I'm at time now. And so now we can, am I at time? Was that right?
Yeah, I was going to say we
Okay.
might have time for a question if anyone has one, but I don't see
Yeah,
any
I have
in
plenty
the
of time
chat.
and questions, and I can also demo stuff if we need, um, because I did want to pull up other stuff. Thank you, Erica and Karen. So our company consults. Yeah, let me bring up something so I can show what we can do. But Our company consults on all the stuff of how to use AI, right? It isn't about training. I can offer you a workshop on prompting, but I guarantee you that's not going to help. So what we work on is the change management. And right now, the most of that change management focus on teaching mindset, right? And understanding simply what's going on and getting people into your system, whatever that system is. Um,
And we are at time, but I want to make sure that folks know that I shared a link earlier. Here's a handy link again. Thank you to Jennifer from the ELB team who was sending it to me. Huge thank you to Josh. I mean, I feel like we just scratched the surface. I wish we had more time. Demo Day rocks. You all rock. Thank you, everyone. Go take a quick break.